Mike. Good morning, everyone. It is the 10 o'clock hour. Today is Tuesday, August 23rd, 2011. The Board of Supervisors of the County of Del Norte and the governing body of all other special assessment and taxing districts for which said board so acts is now meeting in regular session. Only those items that indicate a specific time will be heard at the assigned time. All other items may be taken out of sequence to accommodate the public and staff availability. If you will please stand. Supervisor Sullivan will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. New employees? Do we have any? We have no new employees. County Council, actions from closed session.
The board has instructed me to send a letter to the Forest Service, but that's all that I have to report out.
Great, thank you. At this time, I would request any deletions, corrections, or additions from board members to the agenda. In order to add an item to the agenda, the matter must have come to the attention of the county subsequent to the posting of the agenda, and the matter requires action before the next regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Item number 6 has been withdrawn, and item number 5, because Supervisor Sullivan and myself have to recuse ourselves, we do not have a quorum to have that public hearing. So those items will not be heard. So we are going to move on to brief reports from supervisors. We're going to start with Supervisor Finigan.
Well, I will try to be brief. And just for those people that aren't aware, because I see a few people in the audience, that number 5 is regarding the rock quarry.
No, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that.
Permit. So if you're here for that, it's not going to happen today. Started out with a couple of meetings, had a meeting of the Tri-Agency, Economic Development Joint Powers Authority, had meetings with the Yurok tribe, their representatives regarding negotiations on the casino that they're going to be putting in down there and the off-site mitigation, off-reservation mitigation. Went to Sacramento, had a meeting of Regional Council of Rural Counties Executive Board. We'll be back there again tomorrow to catch up on all the pertinent legislation that's probably going to come to a head with the end of session here being September 9th, so we're in the closing days of an impotent legislation or legislative body, it seems like. It is way too partisan, but I guess that's enough editorializing on that. But it's a lot like sausage making in the last days, so you got to keep a close eye on it. So I will bring back to this board some of the legislation that's going to be happening in the last couple of weeks. Had an opportunity to meet with the new Chief Justice, and she was very engaging. Had talks about different issues as they affect probation, as they affect the courts, what effect AB 109 is going to have on the judicial system, and talked about this case management, statewide case management that has, some people called a boondoggle. It's called millions, if not billions of dollars, still is not working, but that they feel that now they're on the right track, that it will. I was not aware that if you got arrested in another county and then you and were charged with something or convicted of something and then subsequently got arrested in Del Norte County, that we don't know what you got arrested for in that other county. There is no statewide system that tells you who that guy is or what crime this person may have committed in another community. I was oblivious to the fact. I thought when you, like others, when they ran your driver's license that it showed up. Well, it doesn't. And so that's what this case-wise system is supposed to do. And it's something, I said, well, you got a couple issues. Number one, if it's a funding issue, we also have a court collections issue. So maybe if the administration office of the courts was a little bit tougher on collections and then earmark part of that for this case management system, now with realignment and AB 109 with taking place is the perfect opportunity to start talking about recidivism. But we need to know who it is that we got. And we need to be collecting money from people that owe the courts and the counties. So anyway, it was a good opportunity. We're supposed to have about an hour. She gave us a couple hours. Came back, went to the Del Norte County Fair with my daughter. Then had a CSAC, California State Association of Counties Executive Board meeting, talked about realignment, talked about the issue of the executive board of this community corrections, and how it really, you know, the Board of Supervisors, the counties are the ones that bought into this realignment in AB 109, and now all of a sudden, well, we're lucky here locally with Tom and probation and some of the, and Gerry, of course, with social services, mental health. In the bigger panel, the administration is represented, but in the executive board, who is actually the one that is responsible for bringing forward the plan, we're not represented. And what happens is if we don't like that plan by a 4/5 majority, we have to vote it out. Well, that's not the way Board of Supervisors is supposed to legislate. We're supposed to be part of this program, and so I made that pitch at CSAC saying that, you know, this is, as well as Val Brown and a few others, that, you know, this is not the way Board of Supervisors work. We're part of the proactive solution. We should not be put in a position where we do not have the final say on what comes forward, to be a little more proactive. So we'll see what happens there. Had a realignment call in. That's going to be ongoing. Also at that last meeting, Gerry gave me a heads up there really is not enough money for the rural counties for adoptions. And so we are going to be working and tweaking on that dollar amount. Also had another tri-agency meeting, special session regarding the brewery. And there's a couple of possible tenants that want to get in there. My eldest son, Tyler, got married in Medford. So I went there this weekend and was not able to participate in the Salmon Festival or Smith River Days. Of course, participated in the joint city meeting and Board of Supervisors last night. I think that what got perhaps overshadowed by by a small minority of a couple of belligerent public comment people is that both boards work tremendously well together. We've made amazing progress in between 17 and 18 issues, and we're still working on some other issues. And it would be beneficial if some of those more vocal people would open their ears before they open their mouth to see exactly what a good job these boards are doing. But anyway, I've watched this from the beginning, and we're really working well together. So stand up, take notice, please. And then finish the night after that meeting by going down to Klamath and observing for a while the ballot counting for the fire assessment. And I don't have the official results on that. It didn't look like it was going to go anywhere. And that was it.
Thank you, David. Supervisor McClure. Excuse me. Supervisor McClure, please.
Yes, I've had a busy couple of weeks. I started out after our last meeting, and I traveled to my third Coastal Commission meeting in Watsonville. And we thought we had it tough when our LCP went forward and we had 90 modifications. Arcata's LCP moved forward and had 257 modifications, which is an impossible task. But what it did is it opened the door for discussion at the commission level, which I got real excited about because I said, that's the reason I'm here, is that I want to fix this LCP process and how local governments and local cities are in control of their permitting issues. And there were 3 or 4 other commissioners that chimed in. And so now I believe that there's going to be the beginning of discussion on how the LCP process is, how it's conflicted. And in fact, this is a little bit out of order, but on the following Friday, I met with coastal staff in Humboldt County and went over and said, just tell me the LCP story. And it's a 3 to 5 year process, which is outrageous for small communities like ours because it's more than we can usually afford to participate in. But once the LCP is submitted and during the process time, our staff, we submit and they verify that they accept it as complete. And then coastal staff starts working on it and detailing out where they think there should be modifications. Our staff would then go to coastal and they would sit and talk about it, but they could never get a hard copy of the LCP. And the reason they don't get a hard copy of the LCP is because then it becomes a public document. And then anybody could get a hold of that document and say, oh, look what Del Norte County has agreed to, or look what, and so it can get blown out of the water. But consequently, it ends up with these modifications that actually almost suggest a rewrite on the part of coastal staff. So I'm in the process of looking at trying to figure this out. In my next meeting at Coastal, I'm going to talk with the attorneys, because there should be some way that dialogue can happen between the local entity and coastal staff, so when that is submitted, everybody is pretty much on the same page, rather than looking at this document. Rumor has it that the actual number of pages for Arcata was 1,800 pages, which and what happens is they get the response back, and they have 2 weeks to respond to these modifications, which is not enough time. And so everything starts reeling in the wrong direction. We chose to just say, well, then we're not going to resubmit for an updated LCP. So did Santa Barbara. And now Arcata is taking a look, but they think that they're going to make their modifications and that they're going to be able to work it out. But it just is that we know that we have the problem, and I think coastal staff and coastal commissioners are going to take it up. So I'm really excited about that. After the Coastal Commission meeting in Watsonville, I traveled to Sacramento for a 2-day meeting of the Democratic Western Caucus. But the important part of that was that I was able to spend considerable time with John Perez and Steinberg as far as the leadership in the two houses, and talk a bit about rural issues and about the need for them to change the paradigm. It's time. We have to figure out how to move forward in this state. So that was my message to them. On last Friday, the League of Cities had their Redwood Empire Division meeting in Arcata, and I was able to attend that and speak to the city members that were there, talking to them about the 12 governing bodies of the region of the Coastal Commission, and talk to them about the importance of them getting dialogue between coastal commissioners and the cities and counties. And in fact, at the end of the Coastal Commission meeting, it was agreed that the meeting with RCRC and League of Cities will come back together. So I think that there's some momentum happening there, which is a very good thing. The senior board met. We responded to the demand for the $400,000 in reimbursement that is necessary, and I think that we have a really tight proposal. I took that proposal to Congressman Thompson's office and to Assemblyman Chesbrough's office, and we talked about the difficulties that we were having and what's going to happen. We know that the doors are going to stay open and that things are going to work out overall. I also took information to Chesbrough's office and Congressman Thompson's office in relationship to the Alexander Dairy issue and the removal of the grazing at Talawa Dunes. And hopefully there's going to be a solution. I know that Senator Lamoffa's office is also working on it, and I think that it's going to get fixed. And I had a constituent that called and really wants more police activity in the evenings, because she said it's like every other week her mailbox is crushed, and she's just kind of getting frustrated with it, and I agree. I don't know how we're going to squeeze that out of the budget, but in fact, I know we can't. And then last but least, last night at the city-county meeting, we had a good meeting where we were able to get the lift stations lined up and ready, which is going to give us good capacity in Elk Valley and at the harbor. But there was a suggestion by someone, and I would like to forward it to community development, that we should have a crosswalk at Cooper and Graveyard Hill, right there to J Street. So at J Street and Cooper, that there should be a crosswalk there, because there are lots of people that walk and cross right there. So that's about it.
Thank you, Martha. Supervisor Sullivan.
I had a brief period, attended the tri-agency meeting, as well as a special session. had a meeting at the school district, and the school district right now is kind of in flux and is starting to kind of look at how they deliver education. So there's been a big involvement by California Endowment, and they've looked at some groups outside of Delaware County and how they've had a lot of success turning around their educational system. They brought down a couple that is used as consultants to oversee transition school systems, and I think their first one they saw was in Alaska, but they've oversaw other ones as well. A couple interesting things that we've been talking about. One is tracking the students. Once you implement a curriculum, finding out not just if they go to college, but do they finish, and where are they at 10 years from now, to see if you've got some success stories in there or if there's some problems there. So it's encouraging the fact that the school district's looking to make some changes because the community as a whole, we need it, and I think there's a realization that I'm hoping it's a strong enough structural change that we'll have some successes with it. And then also attended the city-county meeting last night, and for outside observers, when you look at the stuff that was actually covered, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a huge transition. Even on the time I've been on the board, I'm sure from Martha and Dave's perspective, it's significant advances in terms of getting some stuff done cooperatively with the city, and you know, getting away from some of the redundancies that do exist. So I think hopefully that's just in the middle of looking at that. And then also I was out of town over the weekend in Murphy's, California, which is in Calaveras County, and they really have picked up on tourism really well. It's something that it's a quaint town. The whole Mark Twain image comes to mind, but something I'm sure Delmar we could definitely copy. So other than that, that's it.
Thanks, Mike. Well, after the last meeting, CAO Serena and I rushed down to Klamath to meet with Congressman Thompson and Deputy Undersecretary Monica Medea from NOAA about what we thought was the dam removals on the Klamath River, which we were 2 days early. So anyway, we fought. No, somehow some wires got crossed, but we did go down the following Thursday, met with Mike Thompson. It was actually put on by the Yurok tribe. They're interested in the national park property, and they're also interested in some Blue Creek property, privately owned, and they want some of the dams removed off of the Klamath River. There really wasn't much discussion about any of those things. It was more of a just show me type feel-good trip. So anyway, it was a nice ride, nice boat ride up to Klamath, nice day, and it's nice to be there so those people know who you are when you have some real discussion with them. Had a meeting I'm on the Citizens Advisory Committee at Pelican Bay. Of course, there's still the budget woes out there too. They're doing better with staff. They normally run, or they've been running about 100 vacancies a day that they have to take care of, and they're hoping to get that down to about 30 a day. So hopefully that's going to happen. Had an RCD meeting in Smith River. Most of the discussion was on the Alexander dairy situation on Tolowa Dune State Park, the grazing there, which they seem to be willing to sign a letter. It really affects the ranchers and farmers out there with the geese population. They just devastate their fields if they don't have a place for them to go, and this was a place that there was an agreement between state parks and Alexander Dairy to keep that property for the geese and a limited amount of grazing for their cattle. So hopefully, as Supervisor McClure said, we can get that straightened out. I had a 1x2 with the national parks and state parks. A lot of discussion on, well, we had some discussion on the Tolowa Dunes. There wasn't a lot to be said from the state parks point of view, but I did bring that up. There was talk on changes out in Jedediah Smith State Park. they're going to move there's talk about moving their visitor center and trails and more campsites. So those are all positive things. There was also talk on the national park side. They are going to permanently close South Beach Road. Is it South Beach Road? They had a failure. They don't have the money to fix it. They think even if they had the money to fix it, it would be, they would only be able to put a temporary fix on it. They weren't interested much in fixing that just for a temporary amount of time. And getting back to the parks thing, we also had a LAFCO meeting yesterday, which the Big Rock Water District is requesting to annex the Jedediah Smith State Park into their boundaries, which is we will be having a hearing on, but we got the tentative maps. That looks to be going very well. I think it'll be a great thing for the county, great thing for the Hyuchi area. So that all looks good. Also had I had some meetings with staff at the airport. Took a little tour of the airport and to see the progress that we're making out there. It's going pretty well. Just hopefully the FAA will get their act together, or the Congress will get their act together to fund the FAA, and we'll get that back on track again. And also, we had city-county meeting last night. Everybody has talked about that. It was a great meeting. We did have some public interruptions that were certainly unwanted and unnecessary. But all in all, the county and city are working well together. The project for Elk Valley, the harbor, and the city on the sewer line is just a great project. And that's really going to help out that area. So that's all good. And that was about it for me. So we are going to move on to public comment period. Members of the public may address the board on matters which are within the jurisdiction of the board. If you are addressing the board regarding a matter listed on the agenda, you may be asked to hold your comments until the board takes up that matter. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Do we have any public comment? Okay, seeing no public comment, then we are
Maybe it was a good thing we had a city-county meeting last night.
we're going to
Richard Miles' comments out of the way here.
we are going to close public comment period. Yes.
There have been some people that have come in late, and I don't know if they know about the
Okay.
items that were pulled.
Item number 5, which has to do with a public hearing on the use permit for the rock quarry, has been pulled from the agenda. So if you're here on that matter, we are not going to hear that matter today. We will not have a quorum. Supervisor Sullivan and myself have to recuse ourselves for conflict, and without Supervisor or Chairman McNamer here, there is not a quorum to hear that. So that will be pulled if you're here for that. We have also removed item number 6, which was an application for a change of assessment. If you were here for that, that has also been withdrawn. So those items will not be heard. Okay, and it is 10:25. So item number 3, approve a proclamation in recognition of We Remember 9/11 Week.
Move to approve.
I have a motion.
Second?
Any public comment? Seeing no public comment, then bring it back to the board. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. David, would you please read?
Yes, proclamation presented by the Del Norte Board of Supervisors in recognition of We Remember 9/11 Week, the week of September 9th through 15th, 2011. Whereas September 11, 2011 marks the 10th anniversary of the attack on the United States of America by al-Qaeda terrorists, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to the events of September 11th, which had a profound effect on the United States, which continues to resound today. And whereas 4 passenger jet airliners were hijacked, the first 2 airliners, American Flight 11 and United Flight 175, crashed into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York. The third airliner, American Flight 77, crashed into the Pentagon, and a 4th, United Flight 93, crashed outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania after the passengers and flight crew attempted to retake control of the plane. And whereas nearly 3,000 lives of American citizens and of people from 92 other countries died in the attacks, and among those, 836 firefighters, police, and other responders who have continued to sacrifice their lives for others as a result of injuries sustained that day. Whereas we, the people of the United States, will always remember this attack of terrorism on our homeland, and whereas we, the people of the United States, in honor of those lives that were destroyed on September 11th, and acknowledge the sacrifices that were made and the bravery that was shown, and now, therefore, the County of Del Norte hereby proclaim the week of September 9th through the 15th as We Remember 9/11 Week, and ask the citizens of Del Norte County to remember September 11th as a day of profound awakening of the dangers that lurk ready to attack the freedoms guaranteed to us and the liberties we enjoy through the sacrifice of others. Passed by the Board of Supervisors, signed by the Board Chair.
I'm Katie Gavin. I'm the regent for the Del Norte chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. The Del Norte chapter would like to thank the Board of Supervisors for approving We Remember 9/11 Week proclamation. As said before, the events of September 11th, 2001 had a profound effect on the United States, which still continue today. Those lives that were lost were not only Americans, but also people from 92 other countries who lost citizens that day. This proclamation, approved by you in remembrance of September 11th, 2001, gives honor to the sacrifices that were made and the courage that was shown by those lives that were lost. This proclamation represents an ongoing commitment to never forget. The Daughters of the American Revolution is nonprofit, it's non-politically affiliated women's service organization dedicated to the promotion of patriotism, the preservation of American history, and the securing America's future through a better education for her children. It is in this spirit of service that we thank you for this proclamation.
Thanks, Katie. Okay, we got a couple of minutes before our presentation. I don't see our presenters here yet, so okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing no public comment on the consent agenda, then I'm going to bring it back to the board. Any discussion? Jeremy, would you poll the vote, please?
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Sullivan?
Yes.
Supervisor Finigan?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingsen?
Yes. Okay. So, what else we got here? Yeah, I don't know that we have time to go through the crop report. We've only got 45 seconds.
Take that to 20.
No, there's probably going to be discussion on that. I think we'll just go ahead with our, it is 10:30, so we'll go ahead with the presentation from the Forest Service, which is a timed item. Mr. Kelly, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
You guys are right on time. You didn't waste an ounce.
Well, thanks for having us today, Mr. Chairman of the board. We appreciate you taking time out to let us visit with you and talk a little bit about the Six Rivers and the kind of things we're doing and trying to move ahead. So one of the first things we want to talk about, I mailed you our framework for sustainable recreation. And so we had talked about that before. We had it in draft form, but we were able to go ahead with the help of our new program manager, Neil Buxton, who's here with us today, Dr. Buxton, to go ahead and complete that particular document. And so in our efforts in completing that particular document is to kind of lay out a framework to build upon and improve our recreation program here on the National Forest, and in particular here in the Smith River National Recreation Area. And looking at some key emphasis areas for us to focus and invest or make investments that we think would help and be significant as far as our overall program and visitorship here to the North Coast, and as well as integrate with the Park Service, with the county, and with the other Bureau of Land Management and other agencies in this area. Well, key emphasis areas, of course, being river access, dispersed access, and dispersed recreation, along with hunting and fishing, and those kinds of activities. So we'll try to get it to you ahead of time so you'd have a chance to look at it, and possibly if you had any questions or concerns or things that we want to go forward with. We did go ahead and notify the regional forester, my boss, Randy Moore, that we feel like we're in a place where we need to start to put together some actions that we could start to take and put forward as requests for resources and support to start implement some of the implementation items into place there. And so we're just getting into the phase of where we want to put together an action plan and start to put together pieces and parts of this, or at least develop as much as we can, especially in the current climate. So that's pretty much, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about today, and I'll stop there before I go on to travel management. Being the other thing I wanted to talk about.
Oh, okay. Well, if you're wanting to discuss this, board members, you want me to?
Go ahead.
You want me to start off with this? Well, I got to tell you, I'm extremely disappointed, and I kind of had this little discussion as we were down on the Klamath River. It's disappointing to me that the Forest Service has gotten away from managing the forest. We've got a plan, a management plan out there for the National Recreation Area that we've had for 16, 17 years. It's a 10-year plan. And we keep coming up with these mini plans that are already addressed in the management plan that you got for recreation, for activities and things that are going on. And then we continue to get these little plans that never quite get followed through, or nothing's ever done with them, to the point where, and you're going to get onto the travel management plan, which to me is a travel restriction plan, and now we're going to have a recreation plan that I think is going to be a recreation restriction plan. Even though you're trying to add things to it, somewhere along the line somebody's going to get restricted from doing something. I can see it see it coming. The other thing was, if somebody was going to be included in a fat team, you would think I would be the one.
I think I get it, but okay. I weighed in for it, so.
All right. And I'm, I don't know where these plans come from, and I'm not trying to, to get down on any one person for doing it. They're doing their job
right.
to create a plan. I understand all that, but I don't know why we don't follow through with we haven't followed through with the plan that was done 15, 16 years ago. And then we're coming up with another plan. We continually go through this planning and planning and planning, and nothing ever seems to get done. I am extremely disappointed, and if there was a way to reject the plan, I would note that we reject it, because I'm certainly not happy with it at all.
Let me try to give some light there. As far as the overall plan for the National Recreation Area, or the Forest Plan revision is another item that we'll be doing later in the Forest Service working on the planning rule. This particular effort was our opportunity to try and work with folks to try to find some focus areas to work on. We know that budgets are limited. We know we need to partner better with folks. And so in our efforts to look at that across the spectrum and use the Smith River National Recreation setting and plan to come up with specific items in the framework that we have now. That's 10 years old, and some of the emphasis areas have changed or grown, and so trying to look at specific items, things that are key, that are current and need, is what we try to do there, and what we're trying to do, and trying to also make sure that when we look at these things, we're looking at them in a light that is consistent with the national framework. So that's why you see us a framework for sustainable recreation. That is the platform that the agency has built for all of recreation on the national forest. So what we didn't want to do is be caught flat-footed and not be able to articulate at a national, regional, and local level how we fit with those emphasis areas that are key, are going to be key for the Forest Service nationally. So when we put this forward, looking at those things, we wanted to make sure the Smith River National Recreation Area was being recognized, not only here locally, but also nationally as we go forward through what is going to be, some pretty tough times budgetarily. But we see some key emphasis, especially with folks like myself and some others, as we retire and those baby boomers go out and recreate more than they ever have, that we need to be aligned with those national emphasis areas so we can identify those things that we need and, fight hard to get them. But that's the approach.
And I don't want to make it sound like I'm against recreation. I'm not. I'm 100% for recreation. But this document here is something that I would expect to see come from state parks or national parks. And what I feel about the Forest Service is getting away from managing the forest. And to put that, to put that in I don't know where to come from on this, but, to put that in the forest as a priority, and now the forest is taking a back seat, I think it should be the other way around. I'm thinking the forest should be number one, needs to be managed before it burns up.
Yeah, and so I absolutely agree with you, Gerry. No question about that. We are doing some forest management, and we have work that we're doing, fuels work that we've always done. But above and beyond that, our Big Flat cell is actually operating this year. He sold a couple years ago, and we're working on integrated projects across the forest, like Big Flat, which we have another one that Mary Kay and her team's working on, Gordon Hill. So there's a project. We have forest management ongoing, but because this is a national recreation area, and some of the things that were put forward when the recreation area was created, and the new emphasis in the agency on sustainable recreation and how do we go about that, especially with budget times being what they are, we saw this as a key opportunity, and so we tried to get ahead of it. But I'm absolutely with you that the forest management is a priority on the national forest. That hasn't changed, and it is also a priority for the Smith River National Recreation Area, and so we're moving forward with those efforts as well.
Well, the perception is, when I see a document like this, that the forest management is taking a back seat. That's the way it looks to me, because I don't see any new forest management documents coming out to where we're going to have a better managed forest. I think we're well lacking in that, and that needs to be addressed. Any board members? Before we move on to travel,
the travel management plan.
Yeah.
I'll kind of hold those for that. I will. A positive thing is there is a recognition by the Forest Service. You guys need to market the area, because that's been. I know I've mentioned. We've talked to Mary Kay during the RAC process. We don't have the funds necessarily to market for the tourism aspect, but the Forest Service should be identifying, to bring people to the community, because that was one of the original promises when the NRA was established, and it really has not lived up to that. It's been one of those, if you find it, you're real happy, but people aren't coming from out of the board to come to the Smith River National Recreation Area unless they've been here before. So I'm pleased that there is an identification within the document that we need to go find some money and we need to market this area. Because to us, that's going to be going forward one of the growth areas that will continue to support the local economy. So,
Thanks.
My comment is that I think I understand why you have a recreation plan, because it's part of the national recreation area that we have here, and that you have not only recreation plan, you have a roads plan, you have a forest plan, there are several plans. And I understand the frustration that Gerry is having, that the big umbrella plan has languished, and it needs to maybe be re-examined. But I like this one, especially in relationship to the improved campsites and the hunting disbursement for hunters to be able to get into the backcountry, and the goal to make sure that that happens. Sitting on the Redwood Park Association, I know that marketing is the key, and you, the National Forest, are partners with the State Park and National Park, and I would hope that maybe you may want to reach to the Redwood Park Association, the nonprofit arm of this, to assist in finding funding, or or finding ways of marketing that we can make sure that the people get into our backcountry. I've always had a little bit of a fantasy that instead of that great big map that you unroll when you get ready to go into the backcountry, that we could have a little one that shows the roads and where to go and how you can have just a little loop, and just almost like the tourist map that you get when you go into a community that shows which beach to go to. I just think that we have places in the backcountry that are so incredible that people don't realize around the nation that you can drive your little four-wheel, your little SUV, and you can get into the backcountry of Del Norte County, and people don't know that that's possible. And so I think that if we can get that message out, that will be helpful. But at the same time, have communications and a plan, and possibly get people into the backcountry to see the resource extraction that's happening and how that's managed and how it actually works. Because that will help educate people to know that the forest is sustainable if we all kind of educate each other. So I like this idea of this plan and would like to see, I know that this is the foundation for funding. And we should be on our way to be getting some foundation funding through the RPA for some of these trails.
Thanks. Thank you.
David, anything?
Well, I'm not going to pick apart the specific plan, and I get frustrated by the plans too. I'm encouraged by the dialogue that starts in Washington, transferred down to Randy Moore, to the regional forests. I think that the framework for communication is of utmost importance, because we keep talking about these same issues, but if we don't have a mechanism to affect change in the communication process, then we are going to continually see the access to the forest erode. We're going to continue to see that, and it's not just for every forest. I was going to say continue to see the resource not developed properly or managed properly, because I work with people that talk about the plumas and what a great job they're doing there, but it has problems, and other forests that do good. I know the problem with the beetle infestation in Montana and Colorado, and how those forests aren't being managed either. So it's a problem that I think has to start with good communication, and I know what's happening at the top. I'm really looking forward to see if and we sent a letter out to this effect just recently, to see if it translates down to not just the region, but also to the local forest. I'm a little disturbed that the focus is on the mission of the national frameworks is connecting with the America's great outdoors. I love recreation, but to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of the nation's forests and grasslands, to meet the needs and present and future generations. That's great, but then it goes in it renewing the body of spirit, inspiring passion for the land by providing recreation on treasured lands. Okay, but that should not be the primary responsibility of the national forest. That's part of the park system. It's part of the county park system. The national forest is for the production of timber and the protection of the watersheds, or the protection of the watersheds. I mean, you know the drill. It creates a lot of things. And until there is substantial work to manage the forest, our work is still beginning. And I won't get into the travel management plan because I don't want to steal your thunder or anybody else's. But anyway, communication. You know, it's not an extra campsite that makes a plan work.
Yeah. And it doesn't list, you know, where these people were from that were part of these listening groups and all this. And I don't know who the groups were that were from Del Norte County that were on there. There seemed to be a lot of from the Mad River and Lower Trinity area, that there seemed to be quite a little bit of input. It appears from those sections that I read, they're talking more about the Lower Trinity and the Mad River areas, and not a lot of discussion about our area. So I don't even know who was involved from this district to be down there in those groups.
And so we met up here in this area too, and I don't have a list of the names of people that we met with, but we did meet here and in Gasky, and we went out and looked at sites here in the Smith River National Recreation Area as well. But and if you need that information, I think we can get it out.
I mean, anybody from this board was invited?
I don't think anybody from the board was there. That's
right.
Correct.
But it appears as though there were supervisors that were invited from Humboldt County.
Well, someone came from Trinity County. I don't remember anybody come from Humboldt. The Tourism Recreation Board came from Humboldt County.
I mean, and getting back to what, I don't want to interrupt you, but getting back to what David said, the communications, you know, had we known this was going on, we would have liked to have been a part of it, I think, especially Supervisor Sullivan. That's mostly his district, some of David's district also. So, you know, the communication, I think, is the big point here.
Understood.
So if you want to move on to travel management, we've probably been beat up enough over this.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I'm glad to be here. The communication, of course. Travel management. I wanted to speak to you a little bit about travel management. As you know, we're litigating each other here. The travel management rule on our travel management map, motorized vehicle map. That set aside, we know that there's a need to update that map, and we've all recognized that, and so we've been trying to work together to accomplish that. We started back to develop a new proposed action to go forward with, to do an analysis based on work that was done by a collaborative group to look at, you know, what routes do we need and which ones we want to use. So that being said, we went out and scoped that proposed action, and we realized that there were still some concerns, issues that needed to be addressed, and more communication is needed. So with that, and so we got some additional direction from the regional force so that travel management decisions and route designation decisions are now at the force supervisor level. So that kind of put the decision back, sent it back to me from the district. That all said, putting all that information together and looking forward and talking with the board and on 2x2 earlier and trying to make sure we frame this appropriately, we decided that it's probably more appropriate to go back and rescope this document once again, because in the scoping period we got quite a few comments and other concerns that were raised. There was still some concerns or not need clarity around what the proposed action really is, even the one that came from the collaborative group, and make sure that we work with folks to understand that better. And so those things all being what they are, we decided one, that is probably more appropriate for this to be an environmental impact statement rather than environmental assessment, and that we need to do some more upfront work with the board and with the public before we actually start the NEPA process. And so we met with the board, and we met with in the 2x2, and agreed that, you know, we would definitely do more coordinating with you per the rule before we go out with make sure we're coordinating per the rule before we go out to the public with the travel management documents. So that is our opportunity to go back now and look at the proposed action from the collaborative group, which is the action we still want to carry forward into this process again, and rescope that action. We're working on a communication plan now that will be coming to you with a draft. The basis of it is pretty much to meet with you and then have a pre-meeting with the public before we go out to scope and explain what's going to be in the scoping, so they'll have an informed, when they get the scoping document, they'll have they've had a chance to ask questions and look at it, and so they'll be better able to give substantive comments to that proposed action. That said, as we always do when we get those comments back, go through the content analysis, work with the board to make sure that you know what's in the content of those comments, develop our draft alternatives, and then go back to the public once again prior to releasing the draft environmental impact statement to make sure that from those comments and the development of those alternatives or the other alternatives, that we've understood the comments well enough that we've actually represented their comments from the scoping in the other possible action alternatives. So that's, and then we would go out with of course the draft FEIs and get comments again, and then do the final. And before we release the final, we'd meet with the board again. So we can articulate to you, and we can have discussions about, or coordinate about what's in the final document. And so that's kind of our framework for going forward now. That's going to take us some time, of course. So it'll be next year before we get to a decision, just the timeframes that are out there. But we see that as an opportunity to actually come to hopefully a good decision, a decision that we all can live with, and that has been fully vetted through this process and through this board. So that's where we are. That's the plan at the moment for travel management.
It sounds like a good plan to me, communication.
Well, and not to take away from the work that's been done in the past, I think we were down, because I sat in the collaborative group when we went through that, we're down to a few roads. I mean, let's narrow it down from all the roads that do exist and all the land that's there. We were literally down to a few roads, and I think that's the position of the county is. It was kind of a surprise to see the document come out that did, because we only had a disagreement on a few roads. I mean, that's from the environmental groups, the county, and from other user groups, you know, horse riders, off-roaders, and those came to. I mean, we're not talking, you know, thousands of miles. You're talking a handful of roads.
And so we plan to honor that the collaborative alternative as going forward with the scoping, but we surely want to make sure we vet it a little bit better.
Great.
That really sounds great. I think we're on the right track. I also know that the money was not here for the 6 rivers. We were, I think, at the tail end of that. The Sierras and some other groups got their shot at it first. So we're aware of the pecking order there. You know, I don't want to belabor the point. Obviously, the difference between the national forest has to incorporate a travel management plan that some of the state forests don't. And as a member of the, of course, the governor hasn't asked us to meet lately, but of the demonstration forest, state demonstration forest advisory team. And I've said this before, it occurred to me the volumes of good studies that are sitting on shelves that show how to proactively manage a forest for recreation, for sustainability, for the environment, for water. And it's basically the same thing on the national forest, only on a larger scale. And I think the national forest has that economic development component that perhaps your state forest doesn't, where the state forest might focus more on protection, maybe to a degree. I think the national forest does also. But I think that environmental protection and economic development can be synonymous under the umbrella of the national forest. And I think that's what needs to be looked at, and look at some of the other plans of how you actually can do a sustainable yield and have a campground and have travel management and protect the species and have fire-safe communities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And help the economy of the local economies, which is also part of that charge.
Martha, anything? Tyrone, thank you. Yeah. Appreciate it. It's fun to beat you up.
And next time we see Randy, we'll say you did a great job. You took the blows well.
All right, thank you.
Is there any public comment on this item, or any questions that you may want to direct to the Forest Service or to the board?
Eileen Mitchell, I've been here before, and I represent the Northwest Trail Riders, the Lake Earl Grange, and I just want to say we come in support of Gerry and Mike and everybody that's for the forest. And I think the forest management is changing to environmental protection rather than forest management, and I think I even read that in one of the Forest Service's articles about a couple years ago. That's all I want to say. I'm in support of you, and I know a lot of people that are.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other public comment?
Eileen Cooper. I would like to thank the Six Rivers National Forest for a more focused plan on recreation. I think that this particular forest of ours is a gem that is unique. It is the gateway to vast wilderness. It is the national recreation area focus. And that focus speaks in its name what it is about, recreation. And that is the centerpiece and the beautiful chunk of Del Norte that people travel to this remote corner of California to see. And they come down Highway 199, and they are greeted with beautiful Darlingtonia bogs that have informational displays and that are unique in all the world. They have the most beautiful swimming sites along the wild and scenic Smith River. These are the things that people embrace Del Norte for. And when we have supervisors that encourage what is truly the greatness of Del Norte, then our community will thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing no other public comment, we are going to move on. Item number 18, presentation of the 2010 Del Norte County Crop Report. Ken? Thanks, guys.
Morning. It's a pleasure to present to you guys the crop report for 2010, a document that summarizes the agricultural resources of our county and showcases the agrarian heritage in this county, as every county in California does the same. Last year, the overall production was roughly $41 million, which translates to about $123 million impact on the economy. So you can see that agriculture is a significant portion of our local economy. As usual, every year, harvest amounts change and prices for commodities change. But basically, our major crops are the nursery products, including lilies. We did lose one ornamental and flower operation. Sun Valley Floral discontinued their operations in our county, and so we suffered a little loss there. Livestock is another big agricultural commodity in our county. Prices were generally up a little bit from the previous year. Milk is one of our big agricultural products, and production was down a little bit, but the price was up. So basically, milk was down some, but you know, these things vary from year to year. One thing that helped the crop report increase over last year was timber. The harvest was up and the price was up pretty good. So, but you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's gone down over time, obviously. But we did recover a little bit last year. A part of the crop report is a report of what my department and what we're doing in our county to sustain agriculture. And that has several aspects to it, and I thought I'd focus a little bit on that today. We try to focus on the pests that affect agriculture with an integrated approach. In other words, we incorporate biocontrol as much as we possibly can. Like on tansy ragwort, right now we're out, this is a good time for people to be mowing the tansy and getting it away from the roadside. Right now today we're actually utilizing some of the crews that were funded, you know, with federal funding to put the fishermen and stuff back to work, so we're grateful for that. In a little bit we're going to be putting out some biocontrol agents and try to use that mechanism and that approach. There's other weed pests in our county that we use biocontrol on, like yellow star thistle and Klamath weed. And there are times, though, when we have to use other tools like mechanical removal and treatment materials, and so we've listed some of those for you and the number of sites that we do that, all in an effort to, protect the crops and the commodities from these invasive weeds. We've been trying to work closely with the newly established weed management area and identify projects and funding opportunities and such as that. They try to intercept exotic pests that come in, with UPS shipments and FedEx shipments and at the airport is an important aspect. And we do have a contract with the state, and we go out and make those inspections when shipments arrive. So that's an important aspect that helps sustain agriculture in our county. Another aspect of sustainable agriculture is pest detection. And we every year we go around and we place traps in the forest for gypsy moth and other traps for like Japanese beetle and wood beetles. So we're trying to monitor and make sure we don't get these dangerous pests, especially like the gypsy moth, that can really cause havoc in the forest. So that is a little bit about what the sustainable agriculture part of the crop report is. We also report on the organic farming, and we've got about half a dozen or more people that are getting certified to grow organic commodities. I mean, it includes milk, the blueberry farm, some livestock, and some hay. So, I mean, Del Norte County is enjoying some organic production as well. Some of our products and commodities are shipped to foreign trading partners, and so over the last few years, we've listed some of the foreign trading partners, and it's quite impressive for an area like ours to have these foreign markets, and so we list that for you. This year, we tried to get some information, and we did, from the Fish and Game Department, and we included the information on the commercial fishing. And of course, the crab is leading the way there. But I think Crescent City obviously is the #1 fishing port in the Eureka district. Humboldt might, with all their other ports and stuff added together, exceed us, but Crescent City is nothing like it used to be in the past, I understand, but at least it's documented here that the overall production is about 10.5 million. So once again, if you translate that into the impact on the local economy, you're talking 30 million or more dollars. So between agriculture and fishing, commercial fishing, the local economy is really benefiting from these two industries.
Ken, is this the first year that you had the fishing?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I noticed last year that Mendocino County was including that in their report, and so we contacted them and asked them where they got that information, and they gave us the contact person with Fish and Game, and boy, within a few days they supplied us that information.
Perfect.
And so
we'll have comparative.
I'm going to continue that.
Yeah,
yes,
great.
I think it's important, even
Sure
though
it is.
it's not an agricultural commodity. The crop report is a good document to include that in. Crop reports are, they're required. I'm required to prepare one, but they're very useful. I mean, we get grade school kids that are doing projects. They call us for the crop report. Universities do them for research. The information that's in the crop report is used for loans by banks. They're used as baseline information for when there's disasters and the federal funding and stuff like that. So it's a tremendous document, and to include the fishing in there I think is important also, even though it's not strictly like an oyster bed or a catfish farm, but I think it's important to include that in there. And so that's this year's report. I'd like to also mention a few things. Agriculture is facing many challenges, and it continues to do so. And so just briefly touch on some of those. Regulation, it's ongoing. Regulation always increases. It never seems to decrease. And so there's some challenges out there for farmers upcoming. Pesticide regulations on the federal level are going to require different buffer zones now for some of the materials we use. So we're working with the lily bulb growers and the other farmers to try to put our input in and to affect those regulations as much as we possibly can. Water quality, people are interested in proposing plans and regulations for surface water monitoring now. And so we're going to submit our comments and work with the farmers and the bulb growers and stuff to develop our input on that. Air pollution, I guess, I heard Martha say that there's some fugitive dust regulations coming up. And it's hard to farm without producing a little dust. And sometimes these things get a little out of hand, I think. And so, you know, like in Lassen County, half the year the ground is froze. So you're not going to be producing much dust. And here it rains a lot of the time. So again, you know, you're not going to be producing too much dust. So whereas in some parts of the state, fugitive dust from agricultural operations could be a big and important issue, you know, maybe not so much in our county. We're going to try to get our voice in on that. California Department of Food and Agriculture has lost several $1 million, and some programs have been cut out. So now their focus, to some extent, is what they're trying to do is they're trying to recapture their costs for overseeing the programs that they require us to do. And they're going to require us on some programs like weights and measures and plant industry to collect their overhead costs, and we send it to them. And so, for instance, on the certification and the phytosanitary certificates we issue, they're proposing to add a $6 charge to cover their costs of administrating the county ag commissioner for operating that program. You know, it doesn't sound like much, but it also includes the certificates of quarantine compliance that we issue, and we only charge $2 for those. And now we have to pick up $6 for the state. So we're definitely, and we may come back to the board. I may draft a letter and have you guys see if you'll approve submitting a comment to where we would want the state to only charge no more than what the county's charging. Because under their system, if I'm charging $2 and they're charging $6, they're charging 3 times more than I am and I'm actually conducting the program, so it makes no sense. And there's one particular grower out there who's going to be hammered with this, and he's going to be having his costs go up numerous thousands of dollars. So, I mean, that's one thing that's affecting agriculture on that. So I may come to you guys. We're going to have a conference call on that next week, and we're going to see what the input from other counties is and definitely give ours. And if it's needed, I may come to the board and see if you'll approve writing a letter to where, you know, I have no problem if they're overseeing a program, recovering their costs, but their costs shouldn't be more than what ours are, I don't believe. And it puts an unfair burden on some farmers, so that's coming along. And as always, we have the sudden oak death looming in the background. Last year in Humboldt County, it moved up to Redwood Creek, and it infested about 65 properties. And this year, I don't think it gained any more properties, but on the properties that it's on, it's expanded a little bit. And so that's getting pretty close to Del Norte County. And if and when it does get to Del Norte County, one of our main partners is going to be the University of California Extension Service there in Eureka. Yana Velichovic and Chris Lee, they've had a lot of experience handling this in Humboldt County with the southern infestation, the nursery infestation in Eureka, and now the Redwood Creek infestation. So they are really good at what happens is when you get this, it's a complex landscape out there of ownership. There's private property, there's forest land, forest management land like Simpson, there's government land, there's tribal land, and so depending on where the infestation is, you have to deal with these and cooperate with these people. And they are very good. Yana's very good at that. And she asked me today to mention her name in her program specifically, that's going to be our main resource if sudden oak death ever does make it into Del Norte County, because really eradication has never, that we know of, no infestation has really ever been totally eradicated. So it becomes a management program, and we need their help if it comes to that. So that's coming in from the south, getting closer, and then in the north, of course, in Curry County, they've been very proactive and used fairly invasive tactics to, try to control their infestation. So we have it on the north and we have it on the south. From the Oregon standpoint, we're grateful because of the inspection station. If anybody's trying to bring firewood into our county, for instance, from the quarantine area, that gets stopped. So anyway, sudden oak death is very important that we not get it, and it's very important on how we manage it, because some of the commodities are being exported to Canada, and Canada is all about perception and not too much about facts sometimes and reality. So if they, are bringing bulbs into their country from our county, and then they realize that we have sudden oak death in our county, they're not the easiest people to deal with to try to get our commodities cleared and in there. So sudden oak death is an important issue, and today you approved the state contract. So we have $8,000 that we bring in, and we do some of our enforcement work with that, and then we have a federal grant of about $5,000 or $6,000. So we are spending about $15,000 a year from various funding sources to monitor and to follow up on reports and stuff. So anyway, those are some of the issues that face agriculture on an ongoing basis, and I thought I'd bring you up to date on some of those and what we're doing about them.
Great, Ken, thank you. Any questions?
Oh, great report.
Okay, thank you.
Great report. But I do have a question on the sod. When it's discovered, what's the first step?
Okay, the first thing that we'll probably have to do is get it confirmed, and then we do some sort of delimiting survey to try to find out the limit of that infestation. And we would report, obviously, to the California Department of Food and Agriculture, and then we would work with the California Extension Service to try to organize and implement a management plan. And of course, we would keep you guys informed, definitely.
Do you take them out immediately?
What they're doing right now in Redwood Creek is they're encouraging people to take out the infested trees, and also any tree within 100 foot of an infested tree. And what they're doing is they've got some grant funding for some labor, and they're taking the trees out, and some of them are being chipped out and hauled to a cogen plant. So I would imagine, depending on where this occurs, we would do something like that.
Severe irony here with cedar root rot. Same management technique should have been used.
Yeah. I want to also mention that there's probably a pretty good chance that if it does come into Del Norte County from the south, it might be on the tribal land. So I've been trying to get in contact with the tribe. I guess they have a biologist and a person, that would address that issue. And we're trying to get a joint tour up the Klamath River with my staff and theirs, just to survey and to maybe give them some training on what to look for. And hopefully Chairman O'Rourke will respond to that and give us permission to do that, so that we can be a little proactive and get with the tribe and get them a little bit up to speed on stuff like that. And then if it happens, we can hit the ground running and develop in a short amount of time an effective management plan.
Great, thanks, Ken.
No, I appreciate that. I think sometimes it gets understated, the contribution of the ag community to the local economy. I know, talking with different people, and especially even on the fisheries and the bulb growers and the livestock thing, that it's a very important part of this economy.
Yeah, I don't know who the biggest contributor to our economy is, but I can tell you agriculture's got to be right up there near the top.
Absolutely, and it would be interesting at some point to see possibly the number of jobs this supports.
I'll see if I can, there's a census of agriculture that comes out every 10 years, and I think maybe some of that data might be a little outdated, but I could provide some of those figures.
And it does highlight one of the most disappointing statistics you have there is for timber production. I mean, that's...
Yeah.
Because that means, I think Jay was saying on the budget thing, it's like $3,000 to $4,000 timber yield tax that the county got last year, and it was, I'm not sure the exact number, but it was much
Yeah.
more than that in the past. And
I might be off, but I think over time, I'm not sure, but I think at one time Delaware County was producing maybe 60 to 90 million dollars a year on timber, and now we're down to just 3 or 4 million.
yeah, it's crazy. It doesn't make
Yeah,
sense on a
yeah,
renewable
it's
resource.
Thank you, Ken. Any public comment?
I have some extra copies of the crop. Maybe I'll distribute them to community development and stuff.
There you
like
go.
that.
Thank you.
Good job.
Okay, appreciate it. Okay, moving on. Miscellaneous legislative and budget matters. Jay?
Well, go ahead.
Or-
I'm probably going to talk about 2 of them here, and Dave's going to talk about 100 of them, but
Yeah.
there's 2 primary ones that are out there right now. One is passed legislation, which is AB 109, which the Chief Probation Officer is taking the lead on, and will be coming back before the board at some point with a plan. That is part of the realignment process. And the other that is significant is there's a lot of discussion happening right now with the CAL FIRE assessment. I think everybody is aware of the $150 a parcel in the state responsibility area. They are negotiating that right now, and it has been lowered. It also is even lower than what they've lowered it for those parcels that are subject to service from a fire protection district. But obviously in our area, there's a lot of state responsibility area, and that could affect our taxpayers. So those 2 right now are the 2 that I've been watching the closest. I was asked to look into the water quality legislation, and at that point, Supervisor Finigan probably has a lot of them to talk about.
No, not a lot. Just 1 or 2. Yeah, next week, definitely. Regarding the CAL FIRE, there's probably going to be some litigation on that, too. I think that the reason they're compromising to try and bring it down for those communities that are also serviced by a fire protection district is that this fee went through as a fee with a simple majority rather than a tax with a 2/3 majority, because they couldn't get the 2/3, obviously. Couldn't even get 2 votes. But what it is it's double taxation. You're already paying in your taxes through the general fund to fund CAL FIRE. And now CAL FIRE wants to put another fee, tax, on top of that. And then, of course, if you're also paying for the fire protection district, that's a triple tax. No, the one I want to talk about, I think if you have the opportunity, and a couple of people mentioned they did, to read the op-eds, in either the Times Standard or in the Delaware Triplicates regarding the secure rural schools. Our monies went from about 2.1, 2.2 here locally down to about 1.6. We already took a 25% reduction. And there is no legislation that is currently in place that will address getting us any money in the future. So I would urge everybody to call your congressman and say, hey, where's the SRS legislation? And, oh, there isn't any? Well, then why don't you get busy and write some? Because it's important to our rural communities. Our road department and our schools are the ones. It doesn't go into our general fund. It goes to half to our schools and half to our roads. And unless you want to see half the road department laid off and massive layoffs on the schools, we better get some reauthorization to secure rural schools. So a few phone calls sure would help.
Isn't the outlook grim?
It's horrible.
It appears that there isn't a groundswell of support to reauthorize.
No, it's still partisan politics, unfortunately. I did not think that anybody could outdo the dysfunctionality, if there's such a word, of Sacramento. And Washington succeeded. So stay tuned.
Wow.
There's a coalition in place, and there's a lot of work being done, and there's a campaign for Rural America, a partnership in place, but there is no legislation that looks like it's going to appease both the Congress and the Senate. They're too diverse, and unless there's a miracle that happens at the last minute or the president steps in, and even that, he can't make the legislation, he can only sign it, so unless he can broker a deal. It does not look good for rural schools or roads.
Not good.
So get on the phone.
Okay.
That's
Anything
it.
Anything else? Okay, so now, I guess, would direct staff to make available to the public on or before September 2nd, 2011, the recommended budget for the county and special districts. Am I
Yes.
supposed to open a?
This is a request to make it available. There's a 10-day period required to make it available to the public before we have a hearing. It's anticipated that the hearing would occur on September 13th and would have to be concluded within 14 days of that day, the beginning date of the 13th. This is a 10-day period making the recommended budget available to the public. And as I mentioned, we anticipate bringing a final budget before the board on the 13th of September, with the possibility of extending that if there are any questions or additional steps that we need to make. This is the start of the final process.
Okay. So, you'll do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody that does make that call to your congressman regarding secure rural schools, do not be lulled into the argument that, well, what we're going to do is direct the Forest Service to harvest more timber and take that money off the forest. That's going to take years to ramp up because they ramped it way down. So there needs to be some automatic protections in there immediately.
I agree. Okay, item number 20, letter of support to continue the lease for Blake Alexander and the state parks. I'm going to open this up for public comment if there is any.
Scott Feller from Senator Lamalfa's office. Later today, I have a conference call with the director of state parks, the chief counsel, and our local Redwood Park superintendent to discuss this. We may have come up with a solution for their shortgrass management and to continue this lease. There's a lot of different information on both sides of the coin that's not available, and we're trying to work through all of that so that beneficial uses of this property out there, which is a rich history of 16 years of this grazing lease happening. When Congressman Thompson was a state senator, he initiated this process. We have at least 11 species of animals that, from shorebirds to raptors to the cattle to the geese, that benefit from this. The big picture is if this shortgrass management does not happen, then all of the geese come back onto the dairy farms. And about 95% of that usage is on Alexander Dairy's property. So there's a good handshake relationship going on here. We're working, trying to make sure it's perfected for in the future too, and get through all of the he said, she said stuff.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Anybody else? So if there's no opposition for support, direct staff to write a letter in support of extending or continuing that lease.
Absolutely. I would just like to make comment on it that in a nutshell, this is what's wrong with our country, our community, our county, not our city, because we're talking with each other. But when there's a problem, instead of trying to get people to sit down and say, hey, you know, the cattle came through into this area, we need to beef up that fence. Instead of having that neighborly conversation, it goes to a court case. And nobody wants to be in a court case. And until we decide as a community and as a nation to sit down as neighbors and talk about how we can cohabitate with each other, these kind of court cases are only going to continue to just pit people against each other instead of saying we have a sustainable community. We have projects and programs that can happen. The Alexanders are partially responsible for having 90,000 Aleutian geese on this planet. And had they not participated, we may not have seen the recovery that we see now. But to have all of a sudden just a lawsuit slammed to the state parks, and the state parks to put up their hands and say, whoa, we can't afford a lawsuit, without having discussion at the neighborly level is not how we need to get business done. We need to have dialogue. It's back to that communication. So that's my 2 cents.
Well said. I agree wholeheartedly.
It's frustrating.
Yes, it is. Okay, Jay, capital projects?
The townsite boat launch continues to be under construction. There is going to be a minor design change related to fill material. Since the original project was surveyed, there were some changes during the winter times. If you'll recall, this was a 2007 flood. So we've had high water in between. Had to be resurveyed to determine how much fill material was actually going to be used. The engineer and the contractor have come up with a design fix that will actually reduce the amount of fill material to be placed back into the river by just shortening the ramp a little bit and putting it the configuration into the parking lot a little bit more. And it probably will save us an overall cost. In addition to that, and kind of an update, the Requa slide material is being used on this project, so they're recycling that from Requa to this project, which is also a reduction in cost to the county, as well as to the contractor in the sense that they didn't have to travel out of town to come up with material. They won't use it all, but they're going to use a large portion of it.
Cool.
As of right now, the project is on schedule. If we don't have any significant changes between now and then, it should be done by October 15th.
Right on.
There have been some outreach to the Yurok tribe in regards to some issues we've had down there, and in advertising the positive and the advantages of this launch to both the public and to the tribe.
You know, there was one thing I wanted to ask you. When we went up the Klamath River the other day, there was no dock at the.
I've been in touch with Mark Warner from the American Fishing Foundation, and that should be coming in. Should be in any time. The main thrust of the fishermen should be hitting the river here pretty soon. I know that there were quite a few when we went up there.
There were.
But I did talk to him about that.
That's what surprised me when we went there, that nice new dock.
Yeah, I called him last week about the installation. He said it was probably going to go in this week or next
Oh,
week.
they take it out in the winter?
Yeah, they're
Well,
removed.
they always have to.
Yeah.
But I was
as soon as
surprised.
I was hoping it wasn't taken. That's what I was-
No, but
No,
I
he
mean, this was-
relocates that.
This was only a couple of weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, that we went down there, and that's pretty well into the summer.
It is, but the main run is just starting, so they try to put it in at the correct time when they hit everybody. But yeah, I did talk to him last week. He's on that one.
Well, look, I mean, there was actually people using the ramp when we were going up.
Yeah, they're still fishing down there. It's just starting. I think if you recall when we were on that trip, they mentioned that the commercial season, I think, starts this week or next week.
It started.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot more use in the river on the lower river. And Supervisor Finigan had gotten a hold of me, and I had gotten a hold of our parks maintenance people to make sure the light is working down there. It went out, so they were sending down Northridge Electric to get the bulb going again, and it wasn't shot out. So we've had a lot of success on that ramp, reducing vandalism. But the townside ramp, it's on task. Hopefully, we don't have any delays because we don't want to get too far into October. We're still working on the final steps in regards to the Prop 40 projects, also getting Battery Point going in regards to the RFP, and dealing with Point St. George. We had a meeting. I went to a meeting with the Coastal Conservancy staff member at the Smith River Rancheria. I met with their cultural committee, and then the next day we met with Smith River Rancheria, Elk Valley Rancheria, state parks, trying to get the project lined out for the next step to finish this phase. It's become very obvious we're not going to be able to get this done before the end of the year because there are some biological studies that are going to be obligated that won't be able to be done until next spring. So we're going to have to ask for an extension. It looks like we can get one, but it has gotten a lot more complicated. Let's just put it that way. But we're working through those complications. I was fortunate to have been invited to speak at the barbecue for the Tsunami Relief Cruise, and it was very encouraging because I saw about 200 people. And their whole goal was to be there to do work and earn a paycheck, and they were very proud of the work they've been doing. And the reason I bring this up under capital projects is that they've taken a lot of stress off of our parks by going out and maintaining, whether it's weed eating, whether it's rebuilding the footbridge at Florence Keller, doing a lot of work at Camp Park, basically work that our crews have not been able to get to. And I've heard nothing but positives throughout the community. And
Our
so
crew.
Our crew right now is one person, yes. Hope to have two here soon. But yes, it's taken a lot of stress off of them. And also, I think it added a lot of pride into the community because I've heard nothing but positives from people that have come around. And the one thing that they've picked out that everybody wants to talk about are the curbs, the painting of the curbs. There's been a tremendous amount of work out there, but that's the one I think that stuck out the most to the people that have talked to me. So that was very encouraging, and the people that were there were quite proud of the work they've done.
There's red curbs out there I didn't know we had.
Yeah.
There is.
They
And
haven't gotten a ticket yet?
they've also done work for the road department and gone out and done crosswalks and curbs for them.
Somebody helped with some brush clearing on the levee down there, too.
They did. They
I
did
got
some work on the levee.
Lots of thanks from the people in Klamath last night.
Yeah, they had to pull off of that one. There were some injuries, and they had to pull off of that. But they did do a considerable amount of work, and the road department will pick that up at a later date. The Parks Department also asked for some surplusing of picnic tables. This is in relation to the upgrading of all of the tables through the Prop 40 money. And we were able to do that surplusing and also donate some of those to the Smith River Community Service District, which used those for Smith River Days. And I was able to utilize one of those picnic tables last week. And they are not brand new, but they are certainly still functional. And so they're being used by different groups throughout the community. We're able to surplus those to different nonprofits or governmental agencies. And we may also get to a point where we make those available to the public at some point, but they're being utilized. I was also last night after the city-county meeting able to go over to Pikes Field and meet with John Horner, who's our recreation coordinator. Just an update, you know, the board has committed a lot of improvement money to that facility, and every time I get a chance, I'm gonna promote it. But we have 36 teams playing out there. I can't remember a time when we've had that many teams. I think the most I've seen is 32. These are co-ed and 3 division of men's teams. They're just ending their seasons. They'll be finishing up over the next week or two. Got nothing but positives from people that I talked to last night. The facility is spotless. It's extremely functional, and with all of the tournaments that John has promoted, brings a lot of money into the community because we've had a lot of outside teams. And in fact, we have a tournament coming up, I think, this next weekend, and all of the teams currently are from out of town. So they will come to our hotels, they'll come to our parks, and they'll be here for at least 2 days. So it's been very encouraging. John does a great job, and there's a lot of help on those fields also from Little League. And he has a crew of part-time temporaries that work the summer to help him out. And we've had out-of-town teams come, and they can't get enough of coming to the coast to get out of the heat and play over here on a facility and fields that are as good as you'll find in the region. So definitely an investment that's worked out.
That's it. I just got a couple of things to since I drive by it every day, both projects. The sewer line extension out North Crest Drive is moving right along. They're working on the very end of it. I'm assuming they'll have a couple of laterals to go across the North Crest Drive, but looks like they've got most of the groundwork done, except for, I see they've cut for one lateral at least, so it will go across North Crest Drive, and I'm sure they'll be hooking that up. So
I do have a question in relation to that. That island that right at North Crest of Washington that has been severely overgrown with weeds until now, are we just going to pave that over?
they're going to concrete it over. I was just going to get to that because it's another one
that,
of those
I mean,
areas I
we
drive
don't
by
have the personnel to
every
believe that thing, right?
every day, and I got to give a shout out to Tisha Curran, who kind of initiated that whole thing to get that project to go and complain to me on a daily, at least weekly basis. Not that she's much of a complainer, but she had actually got a fund going to maintain it for a number of years, and then finally decided that something needed to be done. So, and it does need to be done, and it looks better now than it's ever looked, and it doesn't look very good.
It doesn't have anything on it.
It doesn't have anything on it. But I did talk to Jeff about that, And I guess that'll be maybe on our next meeting to approve the project for that, so looking
Yeah, it's a,
the angle? Yeah.
it's a concrete stamping project with colorization. And so they do have a contractor, they have a bid. They weren't able to get the contract on this agenda. They had hoped to get the contract done so they could get the work done prior to the start of school. And so it's going to hit about the opening week of school.
It will.
But, you know, it'll slow some things down on the turn lane, but it sounds like they have that underway. You should see that, I think, on the 13th.
So can we name it Tisha's Island or something?
But, you know, the road department is taking the lead on that one. They did take a lot of heat in regards to the fact that it's not maintained, but it's an interesting one. Our road department is a road maintenance crew. They are not a landscape crew, and it's something that we may have to work out with the city at some point when we have landscape.
Chamber of Commerce took that on originally. I remember the people that did it, and just, yeah.
Yeah. So they're into maintaining and not really set up to do a lot of landscaping. So this will take an area that has gone a little bit wild and turn it into something a lot more attractive. I don't know what color it's going to be, but
Brown.
It did say there was colorization.
Brown? Is what I heard.
Somewhere around there.
I think it'll look good. There you go.
You know, the road department is out paving right now. That's one of the other things that was kind of slowing them down, is they've got a lot of paving projects they're working on
Yeah.
to get done before the rain starts.
Before the seasons change.
I saw them kicking up again this morning for school.
Okay, board members, anything else? With that, we are adjourned. Thank everybody for coming.